Hello everyone and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Friday, February 15th, 2019. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the latest film and TV news. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta. And joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
And writers Hoai-Tran.
Hey everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hi.
Okay guys, it is Friday. It's the end of the week. That is a celebration. Right? Like, we have made it another week, and we have a bunch of news to talk about. Let's talk about some news that hit after we recorded yesterday, and that is that Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean reboot has lost its screenwriters. Chris, what do we know?
Rhett, Reese, and Paul Wernick, who wrote the two Deadpool films, and they wrote Zombieland and the upcoming Zombieland 2. They're hot screenwriters. Hollywood loves working with them, and Disney was hoping they would come in and reboot the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise because, as everyone knows, even though those movies have all been hits, the series has more or less run out of steam at this point, and Johnny Depp asks for way too much money to be in them. So they want to start fresh. They want to have a Johnny Depp-less Pirates franchise, and they were hoping these two guys would get it done, and apparently that's not going to happen. The story goes that they're out. They're no longer involved. Sources differ on why. The most common one I've read was just that they're just too busy. They have too much stuff to do to work on Pirates of the Caribbean, whatever they're going to call it. So as of now, the film is without a writer, and weirdly enough, rather than just find new writers, Disney seems to be considering just giving up entirely, which seems a bit odd to me because there are more writers in Hollywood besides these two guys. Like, they're not the only game in town, but apparently Disney is already considering just pulling the plug entirely on this idea.
Huh. That seems a little strange. I feel like they're going to get someone else on board. Wasn't there some talk of getting Guy Ritchie or something?
Well, he had to direct, but he wouldn't write the script, I don't imagine.
Yeah, that would be a horrible choice anyways. I don't think anybody wants to see a Guy Ritchie Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I think we've speculated in the past that this franchise was going to take things in a new direction with a female lead in the ride. They have recently made a character, a female pirate named Rhett, and I think that's probably, if I was going to guess, what Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick were kind of chasing and what they were trying to figure out in this story. I think it was probably her story. And I feel like there's a take here. They just got to find the right people for it. So I'm guessing this is not the last that we'll hear of the Pirates of the Caribbean reboot. But we'll have to see. Let's move on to another story. This is a remake of one of HT's favorite movies from, was it 2 years ago at this point?
Yeah, 2017.
2017. This is Your Name, which is set up at Bad Robot, and they have now found a director to helm this. And HT, you're a little worried.
I am kind of, that's my whole sort of approach to this entire project, because I like all the names and the people attached to this, but I just can't bring myself completely on board an anime remake, and we'll see. But so the news is that Paramount and Bad Robot have webbed in Marc Webb to helm the English language remake of Your Name. And this is going to be the film that's penned by a rival screenwriter, Eric Heiserer. And this, in the Deadline report that broke this news, there's also a synopsis for the film, or like a concept for it. And in this reimagined version, it will follow a young Native American woman living in a rural area and a young man from Chicago who discover they are magically swapping bodies. And when disaster threatens to upend their lives, they must journey to meet and save their worlds. So this kind of tracks with what Eric Heiser had said before about this version being more Americanized. Native American version is probably the most American you can get. And it actually kind of fits in parallel with the way that the Shinto religion was used in the original version. But I, again, am cautiously optimistic about this because Native American culture has never been depicted quite that well in Hollywood. And Marc Webb has had sort of a shaky track record. 500 Days of Summer was great, but he is also behind the 2 Amazing Spider-Man movies, which were kind of a debacle. And
but I would argue, and we don't, it's very hard to point fingers and stuff with films because they're such a collaborative medium. But I would argue that I think the studio has a lot to do with that debacle. Like, I don't know, if you watch those movies, I feel like the scenes between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That those scenes, when they're actually playing Peter Parker and Gwen, that those scenes actually work. And it's the rest of the movies that really don't.
Yeah, but
work.
I also argue that works because of the charisma of those actors. I mean, they were dating at the time, so I feel like that has a lot to do with why those scenes work, not Marc Webb.
Yeah, but you think the debacle of who was the bad guy in Amazing Spider-Man 2? It was Jamie
Shocker,
Foxx's
whatever his name was. No,
Jamie Foxx.
Electro.
Electro. Yeah, I always get those confused. Yeah.
I don't know. That seems to me like a Avi Arad studio mess. I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, obviously, some people are able to work with that. Like, Sam Raimi was able to make 2 good movies in that mess and 1 bad one. But I don't know. I just don't. I think it's unfair to completely blame Marc Webb for that. But that said, his last movie, what is it? What?
Gifted. That was his. Yes.
Oh, I thought it was like The Only Living Boy in New York or something.
Yeah, I think he was behind that one too. I don't think he directed that one.
They didn't. Well, both of those were not well received. So I mean, I don't know. He was the producer of one of your favorite TV shows, though, HJ.
He is. Actually, I want to amend. He did direct The Only Living Boy in New York. Which also did not get much praise, but
I think it's like 30% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, but he does executive produce Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is a really smart send-up of rom-coms. But because of his kind of shaky track record, I'm not really sure what his directorial style is in particular. I feel like it's something leaning a little more zany than the kind of haunting ephemeralness of the original anime film. So I wonder if he will be able to nail this premise and also sensitively handle the Native American culture that will feature prominently in this film. I'm just very wary, guys. I don't really know. I know that it has the blessings, and actually the original film's producer Genki Kawamura is working on this film, and they are encouraging this English language remake to make it as American as possible, not do something that's just like a straight up remake of the original. But I don't know. I love this film so much, and like whenever you have such a love for the original, it's hard to get excited for a remake.
But we also have the screenwriter of Arrival involved.
Yes.
Like that gives us a little bit of hope, even though that guy did write that Thing reboot and the Nightmare on Elm Street movie from 2010 that we don't like to not think about. But Chris, what are your thoughts on this? Like, do you have hope?
I mean, I've yet to see the original, so I'm not as I don't feel like one way or another about it. But I do wish that like there's got to be, if they really want to have this be a story about a Native American character, like there's got to be a Native American director out there itching for the chance to make something like this, to make a big, high profile feature like this. Why not go find them instead of Marc Webb? No offense to Marc Webb, but
yeah, I'm a little concerned that so far there aren't a lot of people of color or Native American people on this crew yet, but maybe they'll get some consultants. And yeah, Marc Webb, I feel like maybe not quite suited towards portraying this particular culture. So
you do make a good point here. Every year at Sundance, when you go to Sundance, there's tons of Native American directors that are getting, that have films in that competition. And it's also weird because J.J. Abrams has been kind of this person that has been pushing for diversity on screen and behind the camera. It is strange to have Marc Webb, white guy, take the helm of this story, but I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how it turns out. Let's move on to an announcement that Disney made today. This is, by the way, I guess the last day of filming on Star Wars Episode 9, at least according to some images that have been posted by the crew of the production. And the chances are that there's a 50% chance that they could be announcing the title of that movie today, because they announced it at the end of production for Force Awakens and the end of production of Solo: A Star Wars Story. And if that happens, we will have to record an emergency episode later today.
I mean, there's a 50% chance every day that they're going to announce the title for Star Wars.
But I'm just saying, 50% of the time of Disney Star Wars movies, they have announced it on the last day of principal photography. So there's a bigger than average chance today. But Disney did make a big Star Wars announcement today already, which makes me think that it might not happen. And that is that they're going to have a triple Force Friday. Brad, what is going on here?
Yes, Triple Force Friday is coming later this year. As we have seen with the release of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, every time a new Star Wars movie comes out, a month or two before the movie comes out, there's a huge day when the first merchandise related to that movie hits shelves. The first action figures, lunchboxes, towels, clothes, housewares, everything that you can throw the Star Wars brand name and characters on. The first wave comes out on what is called Force Friday. So this will be the third time that they've done this. It's happening on October 4th. But this one is a little bit bigger because not only will they be releasing merchandise related to Star Wars Episode 9, they will also be releasing the first round of products tied to Disney's first live-action Star Wars series, The Mandalorian, which is coming to Disney Plus sometime this year, and also a new video game from EA and Respawn called Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So that's the reason it's called Triple Force Friday. And I'm also hoping that there's going to be some kind of fast food tie-in for some kind of cheeseburger or maybe like an appetizer platter at TGI Fridays to really bring this full circle, because that's just what we need for Star Wars, I think.
Yeah. They have done this for every Star Wars film released by Disney thus far. And I know for... it was huge when they did it for Force Awakens, because that was like the, first time you could get like BB-8 merch and all these, merch for like all these new characters. But Last Jedi, it was not as popular in Solo: A Star Wars Story. Like, those toys are still on the shelves for whatever.
Oh my God. It's a habit I have because I'm a Star Wars collector, only of pretty much of the Black Series figures now. I always check the toy aisle whenever I'm at the store, and there are still Rogue One figures on shelves. Jyn Erso, Cassian Andor, you still see them there. It's really depressing. And then the Solo characters I've seen discounted down to like $10 as well.
Yeah, it's a problem.
It is.
So I'm guessing they're thinking if they can tie this with Frozen and the the Star Wars TV show, that they'll get that big.
So the Frozen thing is something that's separate, even though it's happening on the same day. Disney also announced Frozen Fan Fest, which will also be happening on October 4th, and that's when they'll be releasing the first wave of merchandise related to Frozen 2. However, it seems like...
Yeah, but if you're a family and you have a brother and sister in the family, you're going there and you're going to both of those aisles.
But at the same time, I'm not entirely sure if all retailers that are doing Force Friday will also have the Frozen stuff out at the same time, because the press release specifically mentions that Force Friday for Star Wars stuff will start at midnight on October 4th. But Frozen Fan Fest only just says October 4th. So I feel like a lot of that stuff maybe won't be available until the morning of October 4th. And on top of that, I go to Force Friday every time it happens. I've gone at least every time it has. And you don't see any kids there. It's all adult collectors who are getting stuff, because no parents want to take their kids to a store on a school night to spend money on a bunch of toys.
Well, doesn't it usually happen on a Friday night?
No, it happens Thursday.
Oh, it's Thursday night.
It's midnight Friday.
Yeah, the only one I went to, I think, was the original Force Friday, and they were fully unprepared with merchandise. Like, everything sold out like within the first like few people in line. Like any of like the like things that people wanted, like BB-8s and like the Black Series figures and stuff like that. As our former colleague, or our former writer Jermaine Lucier once wrote, the Funko Pops were decimated.
Beep, 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 beep. Breaking news. I'm just going to cut in here. I'm getting reports that Star Wars Episode 9 has indeed wrapped. And by reports, I mean J.J. Abrams posted it on Twitter. So there you have it. It's official. They're done until they have to do reshoots.
Yeah. There is our first photo, our first official photo from set showing the three leads, Oscar Isaac, John Boyega, and Daisy Ridley hugging. Are they crying?
Oscar Isaac looks like he's crying to me. He looks very upset.
Yeah. They also look like they're in a set that is kind of like on a sand planet of some kind. Are they returning to Jakku, or maybe could that
they're at Cabo for spring break, I believe.
Actually, this looks like Fire Festival to me.
Oh, okay, yes. We're gonna get those cheese sandwiches and call it a day.
Also, I don't want to put anyone's speculation into overdrive, but if you look in the far left side of the picture, it looks like Constable Zuvio might be back there, the famed character who got his own action figure but didn't even appear in The Force Awakens.
By the way, he does appear in The Force Awakens. I think there's like 2 or 3 frames. People have posted this online where you can see him in the background.
I don't know. I see what looks like something that could be shaped like his head back there on the left, but I'm not sure. I'm just throwing it out there.
So our theory is that they're hugging because they survived Firefest.
And they found Constable Zuvio.
Okay, well, you can check out that photo. By the time you hear this, it'll be on slashfilm.com, so check it out there. But, okay, Chris, let's get back to this. Urban Outfitters is selling VHS tapes in a mystery box bundle, and people are kind of making fun of this online. What do we know?
Yes, to hell with Star Wars. This is the important news. So Urban Outfitters, they posted on their website the other day. They have this, it's literally a mystery box with a set of 5 VHS tapes. It's assorted 90s comedies, and the example image they show features A Night at the Roxbury and The Waterboy and Office Space and I think European Vacation and Heathers. And, I'm not going to comment on the quality of those films themselves, but the amusing thing is they're selling these 5 tapes in a bundle for $40 when really you can go into any thrift store or used music store and buy like these same things for like 25 cents a pop. So it seems to be, Urban Outfitters, they're known for jacking up the prices on things. They sell t-shirts for like $70 and it's, not exactly high quality stuff. And, this is literally just cashing in on nostalgia. There are people out there who still hold VHS in high regard, even though it's at this point the worst format to watch anything. But people hold on to it. And I get that. I grew up in the VHS age, but this seems to be pushing it just a little bit too far.
I don't even think there's a VHS maker that like makes like the players anymore. I think like the last one stopped making the players, so you have to buy vintage players as well. But I mean, I don't really know the history of records and the big boom around like the hipster era of like, vinyl, but I assume the same thing must have happened, right? Like the prices had gotten really cheap and then all of a sudden like it kind of blew up again.
Yeah, but you can still buy records very cheap, like used records. The new things, like new pressings, are a bit pricey, but they're also new. They're being, newly pressed. Whereas I'm not going to say they're not being jacked up in price because they are, but they are in theory new. Whereas these are 100% used VHS tapes that have just been like sitting around in someone's garage, and now Urban Outfitters is selling them for $40.
And the funny thing here is there's not even the chance that you could get a rare VHS tape, right? Like usually with these blind box things, like you get these blind box toys, there's like a chaser, which, comes in like 1 in 100 of those boxes that you buy. With these VHS tapes, you're just getting crappy used VHS tapes of comedies that are worth nothing and you could buy elsewhere for much cheaper and actually know what you're getting. So what is the advantage here, Chris?
There is no advantage. There is zero advantage here. I'm sure someone might think otherwise. People who collect VHS tapes still, which there are people out there who do collect VHS, and there actually there's probably thousands of films that have never been transferred from VHS to DVD or Blu-ray or even streaming. They're films that are, I'm not going to call them lost, but they're still only on VHS. But that's not what you're getting here. You're getting the Water Boy. So if you want to buy these for like a joke, then maybe, I don't know. But beyond that, I don't really know what the appeal of this is.
I'm not surprised that this is something that's being sold at Urban Outfitters, because last time I was there, I found like mixed CDs that have, the songs written in Sharpie, like you would have mixed CDs, but they're selling them for like $15. And it's their whole thing now, just monetizing that nostalgia in the most ridiculous way.
Now, half the people on this podcast have a love for physical media and are still collecting. You have huge shelves with many DVDs and Blu-rays. Brad, do you have any love for VHS?
No, not at all. It's a dead technology. The quality on VHS is terrible. If there's one thing that I miss, and if there was a way to collect it, I think it would be cool. I do miss the kind of art that used to be on VHSs, because more often than not, VHS boxes would have cool, like, hollow foil kind of designs, or like designs that were like raised against your fingers if you were to rub your fingers like across the lettering of the title or something like that.
Yeah, I think they call it embossed. I think.
Yeah, embossed. That's it. And they don't really do that with a lot of Blu-ray covers anymore, because the artwork is inside of that plastic jacket that's around Blu-ray and DVD covers, and sometimes there's cool art on those, but more often than not, it's it's kind of just whatever. And so if there's one thing I miss about that VHS, it's cool VHS box art designs, but otherwise, yeah, collecting the tapes, it's no point.
I, for one, miss having to have two VHSs for extra long movies like Titanic, in which you had to stop in the middle and then like take it out and put the other one in.
Oh yeah, those were the worst. I think I do own some VHSs though. I own the box sets for the Back to the Future trilogy and the original Star Wars trilogy. Do any of you still own some VHS, or is that all out with the trash?
I think I still have some like in my basement, but I don't even know what I have. I do think I have some down there, but I have no idea what they even are. So it's not like something I cherish exactly.
I think mine are.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Mine are still at my parents' house. I know that we have a bunch of Disney clamshells. And I think that my
By the way, those can still be worth a lot of money, like some of those.
Well, that's kind of misleading, actually, because even though some have sold for high amounts on eBay, more often than not, they don't. And if you look, there's a very inconsistent price market out there on eBay as for what people are willing to pay for Disney clamshells.
Oh, yeah. I just know that, like, when I go to Amoeba Records, which sells a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays and VHS, like, the section of VHS, the only ones that are worth anything are the Disney clamshells. Those are the only ones that cost more than the rest, usually. HT, you were going to say something?
Oh, yeah. I still have my entire Disney collection at my parents' house in VHS, but I don't know if I will go replacing all of them, because some of them haven't even come out of the archive or the vaults yet.
Yeah, the Disney vault. Interesting, but none of us are heading to Urban Outfitters to spend $40 on a mystery box of comedy.
Chris might.
Though I checked, they don't have them at the 1 year. Maybe I'll have to order it and have it shipped to me if I want to do this.
we joked about doing an unboxing video with Chris.
Yeah, let me throw it out there right here on the show. Listeners, do you want me to get the mystery box and then film an unboxing video right into, what is it, Peter at /film.com?
Yeah.
Let him know, and he'll let me know. And if we get enough people saying, yes, Chris, waste your money on this,
Put out a poll on Twitter and see what people think.
Yeah, maybe I should do that. Yeah. Either way, let us know.
It's I could just imagine like the opening is like, hey, it's me, Chris. For another unboxing.
Just a heavy sigh every time.
Wait, should the unboxing video be from your perspective, or should it show you? Because we want to see, as HT put it in our Slack channel, want to see the size.
I think it should be me. It should show me frowning as I dig through this box.
Okay. Write me, and if you actually want to see this, Peter at /film.com. We'll take the money out of the /film budget, put it towards one of these things. Okay, let's move on to Will Smith, who at one point turned down The Matrix. HC, why?
Well, it's a piece of well-known trivia that Will Smith turned down The Matrix. He originally was approached to play the role of Neo, which went to Keanu Reeves. And instead, he went on to do the biggest bomb of his early career, Wild Wild West. In a YouTube series called Storytime that Will Smith posts every now and then, he explained why he turned down The Matrix. And it basically boils down to a really bad pitch meeting. The Wachowskis apparently had approached him, and this was when Will Smith was at the top of his game, following Bad Boys, Independence Day, Men in Black, and the Wachowskis at this point had only had one movie under their belt, and they came in with what Will Smith describes as a really bad pitch. He kind of reenacts it. He puts on like a baseball cap and talks about how the Wachowskis talked about their idea for doing the jumping scene, which is like iconic at this point, in which Keanu Reeves' Neo freezes mid-jump and you see the entire thing 360. And they were describing this like frame for frame, and Will Smith was thinking, these people are crazy. So he went on to do Wild Wild West, and while he has some regrets, he thinks that it was right that Keanu Reeves took on the role of Neo, because if Will Smith had taken on the role, Lawrence Fishburne would not have been would not have been cast in The Matrix. They were considering Val Kilmer for his role.
Interesting. But instead, Will Smith decided to do Wild Wild West instead of The Matrix?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, well, I would recommend everybody head on over to slashfilm.com, because you can actually watch Will Smith tell the story, which I think is actually a lot more entertaining than hearing it.
I'm sorry, I'm not a good storyteller.
No, it's not you. It's just like, it's Will Smith telling a story.
Yeah.
Also, I think in the video, he's in the form of the genie, so it makes it even better, right?
Yeah, he's all blue.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our final story, and this is that Netflix has greenlit a Transformers trilogy of an animated television series. Brad, what's going on?
Netflix is working on an animated series called Transformers War for Cybertron. So, yeah, it's a new animated series that's coming to Netflix in 2020. They're working with Rooster Teeth on it. But this will be a series unlike any Transformers animated series before it, because they're using a new animation style. And more likely than not, it will be something akin to that of the Godzilla anime projects that Netflix has released recently, because Polygon Pictures is the animation studio that is behind it, and they're the ones who worked on that Godzilla project as well. So if the animation is in that style, this could be pretty cool. It's kind of a 3D style anime aesthetic, which as somebody who doesn't necessarily like the animation style of anime, seeing it in 3D form is kind of cool. And specifically when you're talking about Transformers, I think that style applied to it has some potential there. And if it's anything like the opening sequence from Bumblebee that we got to see with Generation 1 Transformer designs, then that could be something pretty cool as well.
Very cool. I am liking how Netflix is producing these serialized animated stories, these series that are being planned far in advance. Like, they're planning this whole arc out as if it's, a movie arc, and not just taking it, bit by, episode by episode. I've heard a lot of great things about the look of that Godzilla series, that anime kind of influenced series, but HC, I think you did not like it?
I was not a fan. I am kind of a stickler for hand-drawn animation as it is, but the 3D kind of rendering of trying to imitate anime style was a little bit wonky to me. I can't really describe why I didn't like it. It just felt very shaky. I feel like for the Godzilla films, especially, they're kind of experimenting with it, and there are some areas where it felt like the characters were more flat or kind of dead-eyed, and while the bigger visual effects were impressive, the character work had left something to be desired. So I'm not a big fan of just like 3D animation in general. I just think it looks kind of a little bit, even though there's more work put to it, it sometimes feels a little bit hastily put together.
Yeah, and a lot of the Transformers, the movies and the animated series don't really show this war in Cybertron. So I think, as far as I know, this is the first time that they're basing a series based on, these first, this beginning, this origin story. Brad, do you know if that's correct?
I actually don't, because there are a lot of Transformers animated series that are out there. But since they did make a point to drive attention to the fact that it will go into the origins of the war between Autobots and Decepticons, I think that that's probably accurate.
Yeah. I had heard that this is like Band of Brothers with Transformers. So if that sounds exciting to you, get excited for Transformers War for Cybertron coming to Netflix. But that brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. You can find more of all the stories we mentioned today on slashfilm.com and linked in the show notes. This podcast is published every weekday on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Send it to your feedback, question, comments, concerns to us at peter@slashfilm.com. Tell us if you really want to see that unboxing video with Chris. And please head on over to our iTunes page, rate us a 5-star review, tell your friends, spread the word, and we will see you on Monday. The good news here is with this tweet, we're probably not getting a Star Wars title today, which means we do not have to reconvene and do an emergency episode of the podcast.
We'll see.
Maybe the title is "It Feels Impossible." Today we wrapped photography in episode 9.
Yeah. I don't know. The other thing I was saying in the Slack channel here is I don't think we've seen these 3 characters on screen together in any of the 2 films released thus far. Is that the case, or?
I really don't think so.
Yeah, Rey and Poe met for the first time at the end of Last Jedi, but I don't think all 3 were together, were they?
Which was also like a weird scene to have too, because I feel like the audience didn't remember that.
It is not the first. It's the first time that they've all embraced together like this, but all 3 of them are in that wide shot on the Falcon.
We do see them together?
They're not together, but all 3 of them are in the shot.
Okay. Well, interesting.